Welcome back to Art for Evolution podcast. This is episode 4. I am your host, Afro Da Vinci, and I am here with our special guest today, Mr. Roe Melloe. Today's topic of discussion will be the role of the curator and the importance of the curator as a storyteller. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip it over to my guest here. Roe Melloe is a curator, but he refers to himself as a culture catalyst. So I wanted him to explain all of what that encompasses and some of the things that he's done. So Roe Melloe, if you wouldn't mind, just giving the people a little rundown of what you do.
Well, first off, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate that. As you all know, well, you don't know, I am a curator, pretty well known for my works here in Chicago in terms of my exhibitions and different events and things that I put together with visual artists. But the title that I go by is Culture Catalyst. And a Culture Catalyst is something that I kind of thought that I came up with, but I kind of seen floating around on Google and other places through the internet. After I kind of established the name, it was like, oh, okay, I thought I was just being unique. But it's sort of to kind of give way to kind of like everything that I do as a curator, as a artist rep or talent rep, as well as a consultant. So it's kind of just bringing all those different forms together and kind of putting it into one title.
Okay, so specifically you have a company called Melodrama.
Correct.
And this encompasses everything that you do, everything with visual arts, with music, and with culture as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. How do you encompass the cultural component? I'm interested in that as a culture catalyst, and just kind of curating these experiences and these vibes. How does that affect the cultural component?
Well, pretty much what I love to do is to kind of capture what we do as a culture, as a people, in terms of, when I say us, the black culture in America, and then also researching different types of culture around the world, especially that and from the lens of the artists themselves and from the lens of other artistic individuals, and just bringing that together to create those different experiences.
Yeah, I think that's dope because I really enjoy different aspects of art and creativity and how things can be expressed through other mediums.
Absolutely.
And I think that, ideally we'll be in spaces where, even if we're at an art show, there'll be other mediums, that help to express the same idea as well.
Absolutely, I agree. I definitely like utilizing artists that work with different platforms or different mediums like photography, film, not just paintings, but also other visual arts like sculpting or performing arts. So those who are using movement as an art form to be expressive and free and to really create some sort of dimension through their works. So I'm always looking for something unique, something that's transformative, and something that's able to touch people not only emotionally but creatively, and that moves them to just really be outside of their element.
Okay, well that's interesting. So, what stood out to you about this particular area of the art world and being like a curator? Being someone who kind of views other people's work and find certain elements that you can tie in to create one show.
So that's a good question. Excuse me. That really, I really kind of got into the art world through like an invitation from another friend who was seeking out an artist that was in my circle, and I kind of like fell into the role. Just working with them. I fell into the role. It was something that just happened by invitation, through chance, and the connection just made sense. But to go back to your point, I guess working with artists are finding that uniqueness to create those different experiences. I think it's all about just connection, just seeing what works and what doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay. I like that because it's like, sometimes I go to shows, like the other day I was at the MCA, and, there will be a general title of the show, but you'll see work from the 40s, some archival stuff, and then you'll mix it in with some contemporary artists, and, it's just, I think it's an interesting mind that a curator has to be able to find these links that, still tell this unified story.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely want to do your research. You definitely want to make sure that you're staying true to the vision of the artists themselves, but also staying true to, I guess, what you're trying to bring to the table, like your vision, and making sure that that same vibe and connection work between you and the artist, or you and the gallery, or you and the museum, or whomever your client is. You just want to make sure that same connection and energy is portrayed through the work.
Okay. And, with that being said, do you often think about how, when you're putting these items together, how it is going to affect culture? Because ultimately you are curating the culture, the vibe that you're putting in place for the show is ultimately what the people coming to the show are going to engage in, and that's the experience that they leave with. And that all comes from you as the curator, as the idea guy that put it together.
Absolutely. I think basically it's really just being out there, staying current on what's happening in our culture, what's moving in our culture, what's trending, and just taking some of those things that kind of stir our emotions and what's happening inside of us, and just kind of finding a way to build on top of that and tell that story visually, or tell that story through a different experience through these with these exhibits, or through the arts.
Okay. And you speak to the shows portraying drama and emotion. So is that where melodrama gets its?
Yeah, that's okay. So that's where melodrama kind of comes from. It's sort of like this mellow tone, but super dramatic, very just smooth, subtle but easy. But again, it has this very dramatic feel. I like to do things. People used to always tell me in the past, like, "You're very dramatic." I use my hands a lot and things like that. But I'm pretty quiet, yet still observative. And so I kind of meshed those two together, those two personalities together, and came up with melodrama. And that's what I do through my work at the same time, as well as being an artist myself. It's just kind of like taking what I like to see from a artistic standpoint and kind of just dragging it out dramatically.
Yeah, I like that. I personally like dramatic type of art too. I like to be moved. I like to feel something, and if I don't feel it, it doesn't really feel like art to me.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
So we've also worked together in capacity in the South Shore community.
Absolutely.
You've worked with the South Shore Chamber of Business.
South Shore Chamber of Commerce.
Of Commerce, okay.
Yes.
And just in South Shore, there's a lot of development happening. A lot of development happening. And the particular project you kind of put together a group of artists to kind of bring light to the community. So can you speak to that a bit more about the initiatives that you're doing in South Shore?
So one of the initiatives that I've been working on is called the Soul Coast Collective. That's one part. And the other one was the Artisan Collective, which the Artisan Collective is part of the South Shore Chamber of Commerce. And the Soul Coast Collective is pretty much the community part of it, where we are bringing together young millennials or entrepreneurs, creatives, millennials, whomever, influencers in the community of South Shore to bring about change, to help with the movement of this community, specifically to drive it forward in the future, artistically, technically, advancing it so that it moves for the future.
Okay. And what about economically? You know,
Economically as well. So I think there's a lot of power, a lot of intellectuals in the South Shore community, and I just wanted us to kind of grab it back. We reside in the community, in these neighborhoods, especially here on the South Side, especially South Shore being one. So the goal was to bring together this table of super dope individuals to help develop economically, help develop this community, and put it on the map as something that's just amazing. That's wrapped around culture, that's wrapped around art, that's wrapped around food. There's just so many things, fashion. So that was just the ultimate goal of bringing this collective together, was to pick people who are talented in specific areas to help drive and push forward the agenda of this, the community. And if it's something that you wanted to see improve, that's what we wanted to, we wanted to put those people at the table.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So.
That's dope. It reminds me of like what people describe Bronzeville to have been back in the day.
Absolutely.
Some of the best jazz musicians, just kind of that Cotton Club culture and things of that nature, or Harlem, like a Harlem Renaissance. So, always when you do your studying, you feel like, why can't we do that now?
No, we can do it.
We can do it now.
And
that's the point.
And we have the tools and we have the resources. So it's just all about just having a meeting of the minds and just really executing those goals and just really pushing forward.
Yeah. Like, I think it's interesting how art and visual art specifically, well, not even just visual art, there are these movements that happen. It's like expressionism and impressionism, and it might start in visual arts, but it'll bleed into literature and also music and stuff like that. And it's like, we can create a new wave like that of that will make its own history. So, I'm excited to be a part of that change and creating that wave. I want us to make our own genre, and just be a part of history. So I think what you're doing is pretty dope, pretty revolutionary. So, I'm happy to shed light to that. I think from an economic standpoint, it will bring a lot of finance into the community because people are going to see, what's going on over here, what's going on in South Shore.
And that's what we want to see. We want to drive business back into our community, and make it, something that's global. Yeah.
So, in speaking with that, it may typically come with some challenges. So
there's always some challenges.
Yeah, some of the things we used to speak about were in this particular South Shore area. It's kind of like food deserts. It's a lack of really places to go of substance. And what people typically see is, a liquor store or some fast food restaurant or something like that. But it's not a lot of places where you can go to engage in the arts. So how do we get people of the community to, be interested to, come view this work? And
I think basically it's just getting involved, knowing the people such as myself or individuals like you who are in the community, connecting with them and seeing how to get involved, visiting your local Chamber of Commerce, so visiting the South Shore Chamber of Commerce, getting involved there, talking with the aldermen, definitely, and then also empowering yourself, doing a little bit of research, seeing how you could take advantage of some of the resources and programs that are out there to help build the community itself, and patronizing the local places that are already here, to help with that economic development. So, we definitely have local barbershops, beauty shops, things like that, and some dope, cafes in the community already that are excellent. So I think just really getting involved and really showing what the community already has to offer, and then also what we can also build as well and add to that.
Okay. That's great. And I just want to double back to the curator conversation again, because I know that it's something that a lot of people don't really take the time out to understand that world. And there might be people that are interested in art, but they don't necessarily have a talent to create or something like that, but they want to put together, collections and things of that nature. Can you explain a little bit about the business of being a curator and kind of how that works? How does a curator make money? How does a curator create connections with galleries and relationships? Yeah.
So pretty much, in my role as a curator, I pretty much am working directly with the artists, directly with the vendors, directly with the galleries, with the museums, with the collectors. And it's pretty much, like you said, introducing those networks to the artists. Because with the artists, you want to move their work. Basically, the artist designs the work. You want to move that work now. You want that work to be seen or shown locally, nationally, internationally. And in some capacity, you want the artist to be celebrated for their work. And as a curator, you get paid based off of how you are moving that work through those different networks. Selling, work, placing the work in galleries, producing those exhibitions. So that work could be shown to collectors and other buyers, making sure you are finding a network. It's definitely a hustle, but you make money off of the sales of the art, working with different vendors, working with different collectors, working with different museums. So there's a number of ways to make money and to build off of working with the artists. And so that's just a short part of it.
Right.
It's a bit more in depth how I fuse together or because all curators are, focused on different things, but I focused on pretty much a handful of artists and utilizing what they do to help build their brand, and we go from there.
Okay. That sounds good. So interestingly enough, recently there was a young black woman who was named the first black curator at the Guggenheim Museum. Her name was Ashley James. Have you heard about her?
I have heard of Ashley James. I haven't done much research on her background, but I do know who she is in terms of the media, and been the first black woman appointed
as a curator. Yeah, and it's just like the concept is kind of crazy, seeing as that we're in 2019
and we're still
having first.
Yeah. Which is interesting. It's shocking, but it's not shocking. I guess I had a trip about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I was in New York, and I was at I believe the Brooklyn Museum. I think it was the Brooklyn Museum. I can't remember which museum. I was at one of the museums. But anyway, I was in New York, and I was just finding these museums and galleries were underrepresented in terms of there was a lack of diversity and inclusion. Let's just say that. And I was just kind of disturbed by that because it's these great spaces, but you have other people narrating or curating our culture.
Yeah.
Talking like you don't see a lot of black images or black representation or people of color in those spaces who are telling our stories.
Right.
There are other cultures, there are Asians, Europeans, whomever, but it's not us. Why are we not telling our own story in these institutes? And I was disturbed by that like about 2 years ago, and I was just like, is there not enough attention? Are we not being taught in the schools or directed in schools on these specific areas of learning or occupations or areas of work?
Right.
I don't know, but I do know I was just disturbed by that, and just seeing it now to this day, it's like there are still, even example, Miami Art Week or Art Basel. It happens every year, Miami.
We just came from it.
Just came from it. Again, you don't see many shows or exhibitions down there that are curated for blacks by blacks or whomever. It's and not saying that it has to be, but it's just a lack of. There's still not a lot of black imagery that are in these spaces, and
especially not the official events. Maybe some of the outside.
We're still not celebrated.
Right.
I think the work is there. The work is phenomenal. The work is amazing, but it still doesn't move on that same level as our white counterpart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting dynamic, and I'm still trying to figure out what we can do as a culture to shift that or to balance it out, and even just to create balance, so that it's equal.
Well, I think it starts with what you're doing, man, and that's why I really wanted to bring you on and hone in on this. It's very important that we start to own our culture again. And I think the curators and the galleries play the role of gatekeepers with art and with our culture. So we need to be able to take control of that narrative, take control of our image, and just have some ownership in our culture.
Absolutely, I agree.
So that's something very important, like how we were speaking about people that love the art world and love creativity, and maybe they don't particularly have the skill set, but they want to be involved with this because they understand the importance of it. They need to know that being a curator is an option. They need to know how to do these things.
Absolutely.
I met a collective when I was at Art Basel.
Okay.
Their name was Hampton Art Lovers.
Yes,
Yeah.
I missed the show though.
Yeah.
I follow them on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I just found out about them this year.
Okay.
And it was like a collective of, I don't know, scholars or intellects from Hampton.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they just collect art or
they collect art, they do
and then they do shows and things
it.
like that. But I thought it was very fascinating what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they bring out some dope people.
Yeah.
Like, the artists are dope that they bring out.
Yeah.
And the work is great. So I didn't catch the show though. I was kind of bummed out.
Yeah. The work was good, and that was their mission. Just what we were speaking about. They were, and it's actually a video on that on YouTube for y'all to check out. But they were speaking about how back in the day, people of importance would own, our art.
It's not a lot of that happening now, which is interesting. I think people are intimidated by art, especially original art, and how do they buy art and where do they buy art. And that's a whole nother conversation by itself. I mean, I think it boils down to if you like something, just buy it. You know what I'm saying? I think people are just not as in tune as they were in the past, and there's been this, shift, and maybe it's an economic shift, but I mean, it's just as simple. I think there's this new renaissance that's happening now. Yeah. It's not even, I don't think anything. I think there is this new renaissance that's happening now where the culture and the movement of art in the black community is growing exponentially. And it's such a dope way that's happening, and we are like definitely pushing it forward and trying to make sure that it stays along on that same path to grow even more. But I think people in our community and elsewhere just need to continue to support, and to just really buy what they like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be the same thing. You might like something different, and there's other mediums that we talked about, from sculptures to photography to film to all those different areas. I think people just need to kind of just really educate themselves, and maybe the reason why is because we have taken that particular subject out of school, and people are just not as educated as before on art. But that's one way that I kind of think of it. We don't have that particular area in school anymore. We used to have singing, dancing, art. Yeah. I don't think we have those kind of.
I think it's that, and mainstream media. Like, for example, Art Basel happens every year, but what got put on the news was the antics with the banana. So it's it's like we like to celebrate kind of the more antic-y, ridiculous type things.
Yeah.
Or whatever that brings attention to the world. But I like what Swiss Beats is doing, and
Swiss Beats is dope.
No
I love
Commission.
What he's doing. I love
yeah,
what he's doing.
I love what he's doing.
I
To
love
me,
what he's doing.
he's a shining example of what it's going to take to really break this out and make it.
There are some others like Maya Bailey out of Atlanta.
Okay.
He's super dope. You know who that is? Okay, so he's super dope. Like there are some great people. Who else I can name that's really doing something great?
So I like that Swiss Beats actually brokered that deal with the Kerry James Marshall piece that sold for $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
So and that was like a big example in the mainstream of keeping that work within the culture, and us, owning that work and helping to propagate the living artist to, get more money in this lifetime.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited for where this is going and how we're progressively moving in the art world. My hope and dream is that it continues to grow and that there's more ownership. More ownership of works, and that there's laws that are passed to help protect the artists as well.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate what's happening.
Definitely.
Yeah. So.
A great time with you, man. We didn't hit a lot of topics.
We did.
Cover some ground. No problem, man. This is what it's all about. I just want to close this out and, just leave your information with the people and anything that you might have coming up.
Absolutely. Well, people can get in contact with me via social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. You can find me at Roe Melloe, RoeMelloe. You can also shoot me an email. That's iamromelloe@gmail.com, or just type in romelloe.com or melodrama.com, and you can find me anywhere.
Okay.
So, not hard to find.
Awesome. Anything that you want to put on people's radars for 2020?
2020 is going to be such an amazing year.
Good.
Such an amazing year. I definitely have some works around mental health that will be fusing together both arts and mental health.
Okay.
And definitely touching on some of the stigma of especially those who are in the arts and entertainment industry, and just really collectively bringing together those voices to really create change.
That's all right.
So
let me know about that, man.
Okay,
I'm gonna get
definitely
involved.
will.
Also, with the work we're doing with South Shore, be on the lookout for that.
No, absolutely, yes. South Shore is it's ever evolving. You're definitely going to see some amazing things happening in the community soon. So I'm excited for what's to come.
For sure.
Thank
you, brother.
I appreciate it.
you. Till next time.
Peace.